Thanks for logging on to the scope. So what I did is I actually had a couple of the students when I very first started the period. I had a couple of our high school students. Thank you for sharing. Hold a cinder block, like a concrete block, and I had them hold it. And they asked, well, hey, how long do I have to hold it? Hey, and yeah, help them make better decisions. Absolutely. And they said, they were like, okay, I'll hold it. And I said, just hold it for as long as you want to. No disclosed time, you can put it down whenever you feel like putting it down. And so they held it, and some of them put it down after a few minutes, some of them put it down after 10 minutes, and it started to get heavy. And I said, you can put it down whenever you want to. This isn't a competition. There's no prize for holding it longer and longer and longer. And so they held it, and pretty soon, they got tired and they put it down. And I said, that's what it's like walking around with emotional baggage. The weights of pain and unforgiveness, bitterness, and past hurts, that stuff is frustrating to carry around. It starts to weigh on you. And pretty soon, sooner or later, you're going to want to just put it down because you're going to get frustrated and it's going to get tiring. And that's how it is, folks. I mean, for a lot of us, it's like we're trying to carry around this weight. And yes, anger and being completely desensitized to our situation, yes, it tries to push us down. So where does this stuff come from? Well, this stuff comes from unmet expectations. One of the number one things that makes people upset, that gets people in unforgiveness, bitterness, hatred, is unmet expectations. What do I mean by unmet expectations? If you had a girlfriend or boyfriend, maybe you were married before, and maybe that person, they cheated on you, infidelity. Well, you expected them to act in a way that was loyal to you. They said they love you. They said they cared about you, but they cheated. And that's an unmet expectation. I expected you to act different. Sometimes you have a parent, a mother, a father who wasn't there, or maybe who was there for a minute and then walked out of your life. Well, you expected them to be a good parent. You expected them to stay around, to love you, to raise you. And so another unmet expectation. Maybe you have a friend that you thought that friend was supposed to have your back, but instead, when you turned around, they stabbed you in the back. And you had an expectation that that friend said, I'm down for you, I'm going to ride with you, I'm loyal, but they weren't loyal. And so now you have this unmet expectation, and it goes down into your heart as a seed. And what do we know about seeds? When you plant them in the ground, they produce something. They grow up, plant, tree, whatever. And so those things go in your heart, they produce something. And you know what they produce? It's called bitterness and unforgiveness, hatred, and resentment. That's what it produces. Unmet expectations. And so do you know that, and this actually blew my mind when I was studying this out. So psychology today and psychologists, this is what they've studied. They have found out that the part in your brain, it's actually called the anterior insula, and it's also called the anterior cingulate cortex. And yes, hey, I mean, the Bible, it teaches about these principles as well, but psychology, it teaches about these principles as well. And so those parts of the brain, they process pain. So you have the parts of the brain that process pain. So you get a cut, you get broken finger, hand, whatever, you say ouch, whatever makes you hurt. You process that in a specific portion of your brain. Did you know that same part of your brain actually processes emotional pain as well? And your brain doesn't differentiate between emotional pain and physical pain. It actually, the same part in your brain processes both parts of pain. And so, and I can get to your questions after, but the same part of your brain, it processes both things. And so when you have physical pain, it says boom, pain. When you have emotional pain, boom, there's pain. And so, love says it all the time. And so that same part of your brain, it processes both. And so just like somebody hits you and that hurts, somebody does something wrong to you, unmet expectation is just as bad as getting a cut, a broken arm, whatever it is, that physical pain, it's the same thing. But check this out. Let's go a step deeper. Here's why peer pressure is such a real thing. Because did you know that scientists have discovered that the same region of the brain is activated when people experience social rejection from peers? It's the same part in your brain. So emotional pain, physical pain, and then social rejection, it's accessed in the same part of your brain. And so peer pressure is so strong because when people get rejected, it's just like physical pain. And then they want to protect themselves. They want to step back. They don't want to hurt anymore. They don't want to have pain anymore. So what our youth do is they'll try to blend in because they don't want that same pain that is like breaking something or cutting something. And so instead of having that pain, they don't want to deal with that. And so they just step back and try to blend in. And so, and that's what it is. And so that's what I was teaching about today. And I was teaching about the tie-in, and that's why people go to substance abuse, because they'll go to, alcohol, they'll go to different drugs, they'll go to weed and marijuana, because what happens is those substances, they help to try to calm the pain, just like they'll try to help calm and ease the pain physically. They try to help calm and ease the pain emotionally. And to an extent, it actually does work. But here's the problem, is that once the high is gone, once the buzz is gone, you're still hurting. And scientists even say, the Bible says, I know the Bible says, but even scientists say that the only way to truly get healing is to forgive and release that thing. Isn't that crazy? And so there's a link between our body and how our body plays out things like unforgiveness and bitterness. They've actually found links to arthritis and bitterness. And I know some people firsthand who were bitter about some things that were really unfortunate in their lives, but even years later, they were bitter about it. And I have seen them with my own eyes. I know them personally, and I've seen them actually develop arthritis because of these kind of things that they were dealing with internally. They still haven't even found a reason for why cancer happens. They kind of know what physically happens, but they don't know what brings it on. And I have a feeling that it's probably something in that same realm, that our bodies physically play out what is happening inside of us, what is happening in our heart, what is happening in our mind. Our bodies physically play it out. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, she's actually a cognitive neuroscientist, and she studies neuropsychology, and she says that 80% of all mental and physical illnesses in the body are a result of negative thought patterns. Isn't that mind-blowing? That's crazy. That's crazy. And yeah, deception and abuse are very difficult to overcome, forgave, but unable to trust. And I completely understand it. I'm glad that you forgave. And it's hard to work through some of those trust issues. But I'm here to tell you that, hey, when you rely on God, He'll help you work through some of those trust issues. And so we were in the high school. I was in the high school today, and I was teaching 4 class periods about this. And we're not able to push religion, but I took a lot of these principles that are outlined in the Bible, and I talked about these things. So I've been saying this to my mom: secrets and unforgiveness make you sick. It literally does. It literally will rot the bones. It literally will work against your body. And you see, when people have stress and anxiety, it is toxic to the body. Did you know, and I'm actually used to be a personal trainer, so I'm going to hit you with some knowledge. Did you know that when you have elevated stress and anxiety levels, it actually elevates the hormone called cortisol in your body? And what happens is that hormone cortisol, it makes you store fat. And so when you have elevated stress and anxiety, your body literally starts to store more fat because of it. And too much fat can lead to a ton of health problems. And so, man, isn't that crazy? But your body even tells you that there is something wrong with your thinking and something wrong with your heart. Even your body tells you. And so, that's really interesting to know. And so what I talked to them about is I gave them a real life example. A lot of y'all seen Disney movies before. Hey, what's up? What's up? Thanks for joining the Scope. And please share this with somebody. I'm almost done. So Disney movies. So I talked to the students about Disney movies. And have you ever noticed that there's a common theme in a lot of Disney movies? That a lot of the Disney movies, they don't have a mom that's mentioned, or they don't have a mom that plays a continuing role. They have a mom that maybe gets killed or dies early, or there's no mom even mentioned. Isn't that crazy? And I started to think, I said, I wonder, is there a reason for that? And so I started to do some research, started to do some digging. And do you know that Walt Disney, he started the Disney Company in 1923. This is real. But in 1938, hey, what's up, Minister Sherry? 1938, Walt Disney, he started to make it. And so he actually started to make it big, and he bought his parents a house. But his parents' house, they had a problem. There was a gas leak at the house. And so he bought them the house, and then he wanted to get the gas leak fixed. And he thought that it was fixed, but it wasn't. And so early on, when his parents first moved in, there was a gas leak in the house, and it made his father really, really sick, but it ended up killing his mother. And he felt terrible. Walt Disney felt terrible about it. He felt like it was because of him and what he did. And check this out. He would never, ever, ever talk about it. It was known that you don't talk about it. He would never bring it up. He never wanted to deal with it. He just completely shut it out. And so we fast forward in some of the Disney movies, the classic ones that we know. I mean, I can go down the list. Pinocchio, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Tarzan, Bambi, Chicken Little, Finding Nemo, on and on and on and on, even Frozen. You have a pattern of all these mothers who are either killed or not present, who are absent. And check out it, and yeah, out of the abundance of the heart, he wrote. And so what happens is when you don't deal with emotional pain, it plays out in your story. And that's what I was telling the kids, that when you don't deal with your emotional pain and issues, it will play itself out in the story of your life. One way or another, it's going to play itself out. So you need to be healed. You need to deal with that stuff. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean that it won't play a part and a role in your life. Because it will. It'll express itself one way or another. Us as human beings, we were meant and designed to express ourselves. Just because you don't say anything doesn't mean your body isn't going to express it. Doesn't mean your life isn't going to express it. So how do you be healed? I'm glad that you asked, because I'm actually going to get into that in just a minute. Counseling is huge. Absolutely. We need some help with this stuff, because this is good. So I was in the inner city schools in Chicago, in the Austin school. I was talking to the kids about this, and they loved it. It was really helpful for them. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to tell you about what I talked to them about, how to get healed. But I did one more illustration. Did some illustration with some glasses. So these are my glasses. These have lenses, and I call them perception. Everybody sees through a lens of perception. You don't see with your eyes, you see through your eyes. And you see with your mind. Because I can see one thing, and you can see one thing. But we see something different when we talk back about what we saw. But we physically saw the same thing. But how is it that when I talked about what I saw, it sounded different than when you talked about what you saw? Because we see it through something called perception, through a lens of perception. And so our eyes are just windows. We see with our mind. And so this lens of perception, it actually can change as you go throughout life. And so, boom, I'm going through life, everything's good. Maybe I don't have a lot of emotional hurt or baggage, a lot of unforgiveness and bitterness. I don't have any of that. And so my lenses, my perception is clear. It's easy. So I can see things as they are. I can see people for who they are. But check this out. As I go through life, I might go through some issues, some pains. And so I have, you see this? You see this little dot I got? So what happens is a little bit of emotional pain, some scarring, some wounds, a little bitterness. It tries to creep in, and it starts to darken my perception. So I can still see, I can see you, but I still got this little dot here. And so it's kind of annoying. Like, I could go through the day with these glasses on, but it's a little annoying because it's still that little dot right there. And so it's manageable, but I'm annoyed. I'm a little frustrated. But check this out. When you keep going and you have a lot of emotional hurts and issues and baggage and stuff that you haven't dealt with, people that you haven't forgiven, you have a lot of emotional pain, it's like this. Your whole perception is darkened. All of it. Everything you see, everybody you come in contact with, friends, romances, every situation you come to, it's seen through a darkened perception, through a darkened lens. Why? Because we're seeing things through our pain, through our struggle, through our emotional issues and torment. This is the reason why people have trust issues. Because when we don't clean and cleanse our perception, it's hard to see anybody the way they really are. Check this out. Hey, Oregon, what's up? So I got one more. These actually are painted black. I can't see nothing. If you're making comments right now, I can't see nothing. These are actually painted black. And this was the last one I had them put on. Because some people are so hurt, so emotionally wounded, that they can't see past their own pain at all. Everything they see is through the lens of their pain, and it makes it hard to see anything. And so every time they talk, it sounds like they're talking from a place of pain. Every time, they try to do something and see somebody, it's coming through a place of pain. And what happens is pain gets so deep that you can't even see people for who they are. These glasses are painted black, and I can't even see people for who they are. Somebody could walk through my office and maybe I recognize their voice, but I can't see them. I physically can't see them because I can't see past my pain. And what happens is so many times people can get so hurt and so emotionally wounded that even the people who are in their lives and entering their lives, who are for them, who want to do good to them, who want to help them, they think those people are out to get them. They think those people don't want to do them any good. They think those people are there trying to hold them back. And it makes everybody a villain to them. Have you ever met anybody that seems like everybody's a bad guy, everybody's a villain? Have you ever seen that? Let me tell you a real quick way to identify people who are suffering with emotional pain. People who think everybody is out to get them and who think everybody is out to set them up and it's never their fault, it's always somebody else's fault that is out to get them, that's emotional pain talking. Everybody is not out to get you. Everybody is not out to get them. I didn't wake up thinking about how I can make somebody's life a nightmare today. And that's how some people think. They wake up and every situation they're in, they swear up and down, this person's out to get me. That person's out to get me. But that's not the truth. What they're seeing is they're seeing life through darkened lenses. They're seeing life through pain. And they're not even seeing situations for what they are. And so people sabotage themselves. And a lot of times when people are dealing with hurt and rejection, you can tell it because when you try to correct them, people don't hear correction. What they hear is an assassination on their identity. Give you an example. Somebody is in a choir. I'm a choir director, and I say, hey, you sung the wrong note. Let's get that corrected. Well, what happens is if they're suffering from rejection and a lot of inner pain and emotional pain, instead of taking that as, oh, okay, let me correct the note, what they hear is, you're not a good singer. What they hear is, I don't like the way you sing. Now, I didn't say that. I just said we needed to correct the note. But notice how people hear through their perception. They hear through what they've been through. And so what's important to remember is that when people are dealing with these emotional pains, sometimes that's why they may react to you the way they react. Maybe you're trying to correct somebody. Maybe you're trying to help somebody. And they're like, no, I don't need this, or I don't need you. Or they react in a way as if you're insulting them. You know what? That's pain talking. That's emotional pain that's talking. So how do you get healed from that? How do you get free from that? How do you get delivered from that? Well, I have 5 steps that I talked about today. And these are all from biblical principles. And I put it this way on purpose because they asked us, in the schools as we're doing a 7-week emotional health program with the students at the Austin School. And so they asked us not to push religious beliefs, but we can talk about principles. And so that's what we do. So I have a 5-step process. Now we talked about, and if you missed some of this, please catch the replay, that emotional pain is the same as physical pain in the mind. And so how do you treat how do you treat a physical wound? Same way as you would treat an emotional wound. And you can treat an emotional wound the same way you would treat a physical wound. So how do you do that? How do you treat a physical wound? Well, the first thing you would do is clean it, right? You get a cut, first thing you do is clean it because you don't want it to get infected. And so clean it, what that represents is you have to acknowledge that the wound is there. That's the first thing I tell the students. You have to acknowledge that it's there because we can't clean a wound that you don't acknowledge exists. If you're going to ignore it, then we can't treat it. But you have to come to a moment where you say, there's something inside that exists that I want to get taken care of. I want to get treated. And so forgiveness is the number one thing. So you have to start with cleaning it. You have to acknowledge that the wound is there, and you got to start with forgiveness. You got to let it go. You don't have to walk around with hurts and pains. And forgiveness does not mean that what they did to you is okay. Forgiveness does not mean that they deserve it. Forgiveness doesn't even mean that, well, hey, what you did to me, I guess I'm going to excuse it. What forgiveness means is that even though what you did, what they did to you wasn't okay, forgiveness means that I'm going to look past that because I'm tired of letting that situation hold me back. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. So no matter if they deserve it or not, it's not for them. It's for you, because your unforgiveness doesn't hurt them, and your forgiveness they might not ever know about. You might have lost contact with them, but forgiveness is for you. And so the first thing, how you get healed from emotional issues and hurts, clean it. You got to treat that thing is next. So number 2, treat it. So you got to clean it. And then you got a wound, you got a cut, you want to treat it, right? You want to put some antibacterial on it, or some antibacterial ointment, or something, some Neosporin. You got to get something in there, right? And so what does treat it mean? The treat it means that you got to get the truth about that situation. And the truth prevents it from getting infected. Have you ever had an infected wound? It really, really hurts. Do you know some wounds that get infected get so bad that they actually have to amputate a limb, a leg, a hand, a foot, because the infection is so bad and it's threatening the rest of the body? And that's what it's like when you have emotional wounds, that if you don't treat it correctly with the truth and get the truth on that situation, then what happens is it'll start to try to get an infection, and it'll start to try to take over the rest of your life and your thoughts. And let me take a little side trip. Do you know that negative thoughts actually have a physical place in your mind? Dr. Carolyn Leaf, she talks about this, that negative thoughts have a physical place in your mind, and the way you grow a negative thought is the same way you grow a muscle. With the same way you grow a muscle, you work it out, right? You build it. Well, negative thoughts are the same way. The more you think about them, the more you access them with your mind, the bigger they grow. Literally, the bigger they grow in your mind. And they can grow so big that they can start to try to take over even other positive thoughts and memories that you used to have. Hey, and Prophet Joshua Smith, he is a certified counselor. Hey, I'm talking about this. So this is what you want to do. You want to make sure that you get healed. The way you shrink that negative thought, that bitterness, that thing that's trying to take over your mind, is you stop thinking about it. Stop accessing it with your mind. You have to consciously say, no, I'm going to stop thinking about it. I started to, and now I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. Thank you. I appreciate that confirmation. So you got to clean it, treat it. Then next you got to protect it. What does protect it mean? You know how you put a Band-Aid on, right? I have my son Joshua, maybe he gets a cut on his arm and then they put a Band-Aid on it because you want to protect it. You don't want people hitting it. You don't want stuff getting into it. Isn't that the worst when you get a cut and then maybe you wash your hands or something? You're like, man, I didn't protect it. Well, what protection is like emotionally is like removing yourself from toxic people and toxic situations. Sometimes people have these emotional wounds that they're trying to get healed from, but they remain in toxic situations. I'll give you an example, or around toxic people who keep feeding negativity into them about that situation. So I'll give you an example. You're trying to move on from a relationship, but you have some people that are in your corner who keep trying to encourage you to do something and continue to encourage you to get back into a situation where you're trying to get out of. So sometimes you have to remove yourself from toxic people and toxic situations. Number 4, give it time to heal. Give it time to heal. Refuse to continue to access those negative thoughts, and you got to give it time to heal. Now, I know there's a popular saying that says time will heal stuff, but notice time isn't number 1 for me. Time is number 4 for me, because if you don't do steps 1, 2, and 3 and go straight to 4, what happens is you will find yourself healing incorrectly. Here's what I mean. I've been on mission trips before, and you'll see people who have had maybe a fractured arm. I'll take an example. You have somebody who has a fractured arm, and that fractured arm, it didn't heal properly. Why didn't it heal properly? Because they didn't get the proper treatment. And if they didn't get the proper treatment, I saw somebody with their arm, instead of healing back straight, it actually healed this way. It had a zigzag. And so their arm looked like this now. Elbow was here, and then it went zigzag. And you can see where that fracture was. Now, time kind of started to heal it, but it healed incorrectly. And now they have to live the rest of their life with the reminder of those wounds and the reminder that this thing has now healed incorrectly. And it didn't heal properly, and now I have this broken, half-repaired arm. But what happened is, you got to clean it first, you got to treat it, and you got to protect it. Then you give it time to heal. That's right, respect the process. And then lastly, patience and self-control. You got to exercise patience, guys. You got to exercise self-control. You got to let the scab fall off naturally. You ever had a little something happen to you, and then you have a scab, right? And then sometimes, I remember being a boy, I would like pick at the scab, and if I picked at the scab before it was time to come off, it hurt a little bit. Sometimes there was a little bit of blood that would come out because the scab wasn't ready yet. And that's where patience and self-control comes in. Is because if you're not healed from the wounds of your past relationship, maybe you had a boyfriend, girlfriend, old spouse, something, and you're not healed from the wounds of your past relationship, what happens is you'll go into the next relationship and subconsciously you'll treat them out of your pain. Now he's not the other guy or she's not the other girl. But what happens is when you have pain as your perception, you treat them out of your pain. You'll treat those who you love out of your pain. You'll treat those who are close to you out of your pain when you don't heal correctly. And so you got to have patience and self-control before the next time you get into a relationship, because you don't want to abuse the next person. And I'm not just talking about like physical abuse or something. I'm even talking about emotional and mental abuse. You don't want to abuse the next person. You don't want to mistreat that person that is now being presented to you. You really want to pursue something healthy with them. You have to get healed and whole first. So patience and self-control before you get back into a similar situation. You got to get healed. And so my encouragement to you is be healed. Be healed of those past pains. It starts with forgiveness, and then it goes to clean it, treat it, protect it, give it time to heal, and then have patience and self-control. All right, so watch the replay if you missed some of this already. But I am here to tell you that God has an ultimate plan for your life, and let God take you through the steps of healing. You don't have to walk around with these weights all day. You don't have to walk around with big suitcases everywhere you go. Do you walk around with big suitcases everywhere you go? I'm assuming, you're not homeless. Maybe you have a home, and so thank God for that. But you don't walk around with big suitcases everywhere. You sit down with them. You pick them up when you go to use the restroom. You go to lunch with them. Then you go home with them. Then you sleep with them. No, because you don't need to take around all your baggage all the time with you. No, you don't want to take around all your baggage. You want to put that stuff down, right? Because that stuff gets annoying. It gets hard. It gets frustrating to take with you. Imagine taking big, heavy suitcases with you every time you went to use the restroom. That would get annoying, right? Yeah, it's the same for us inside. That every time we try to take all of our baggage into the next seasons of our life, into the next areas of our life, into the next relationships of our life, that stuff gets annoying. It gets tiring. It gets hard. It gets frustrated. And we wonder why people are responding the way they are to us. Well, let me tell you, be healed. Get healing. Inner healing and forgiveness. It's good. It'll help you.